Hello and welcome to my channel. This is Creepy Dread, your storyteller of choice. Today I have several bone-chilling stories for you that have also got me thinking. From a mysterious creature on the loneliest street in America, a forgotten astronaut, why you shouldn't Google your name, to creepy student films with a twist. If you like the stories, please leave a subscribe and like. It would really help me to grow and keep doing this. Thank you. Enough talk and let's dive in. I wish you a good night. When I took this job as an over-the-road trucker, I thought it would be exciting. The idea of traveling across the country and witnessing breathtaking sights filled me with anticipation. I imagined coming home with tales of adventure to share with my friends and family. I was right about the excitement, but I quickly realized these were not the kind of stories you'd want to tell anyone. Not because I don't trust them, but because I fear they'd never believe me. My name is Brittany. I'm 22 years old, and I've been driving for a well-known trucking company for a few months now. I won't name them for obvious reasons. Since the end of my training, when I got my own truck and started driving solo, I've seen things I can hardly explain. It's when you're out on the loneliest road in America, surrounded by the vast emptiness of Nevada's desert in the dead of night, that things start to get to you. It was only a matter of time before something out of the ordinary happened. It was nearly midnight, and I had about an hour to go before reaching the nearest truck stop. The freezing desert air blasted against my face as I tried to stave off the sleep that threatened to overtake me. It's irresponsible, I know, but unless you've worked this job, you don't understand the solitude and the miles of darkness that wear you down. As I navigated the highway, the stars above seemed to dim, and the moonlight cast eerie shadows across the barren landscape. Suddenly, something darted across the road. I barely had time to register it before it vanished into the desert. It looked like a large white dog, but moved faster than any creature I'd ever seen. I shook my head, trying to dismiss it as a trick of the light or just another wild animal. But then my truck lurched violently to the left, almost tipping into the next lane. I swerved, desperately trying to regain control without causing a massive wreck. With my heart pounding, I slowed the truck and pulled over at the first safe spot. Stepping out into the cold night, I walked around to inspect the damage. The side of my trailer had a massive dent, at least 5 feet wide and tall. It was so misshapen, I couldn't figure out what could have caused it. Maybe a boulder had rolled onto the road and struck me, but the desert was flat as far as I could see. There were no hills or cliffs nearby. Just as I was about to get back in my truck, I heard the crunch of gravel behind me. I turned and froze. Not 50 feet away, something stood watching me. It was large, hulking, and white, unlike anything I'd ever seen. It resembled a giant dog standing on 2 thick, muscular legs, with long, powerful forearms. Its shoulders were broad, heaving with every breath as if it had been running for miles. The creature's head was wolf-like, with a snout full of razor-sharp teeth, bared in a snarl. Saliva dripped from its mouth, and its jet-black eyes seemed to bore into my soul, filled with a mix of hatred and hunger. For a moment, we just stared at each other, my heart pounding in my chest. My truck was my only escape, and this creature was between me and my only hope of safety. Finally, I broke the silence, my voice trembling. "What the hell you want? Leave me alone, you ugly beast." The creature snarled, a low, menacing growl that sent shivers down my spine. Then, to my surprise, it turned and walked away on all fours, disappearing into the darkness of the desert. I stood there, paralyzed, half expecting it to return and attack me at any moment. But it never came back. Without wasting another second, I dashed to the front of my truck and jumped inside, locking the doors behind me. I started the engine and sped down the highway as fast as my rig would allow, my hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. The road seemed endless, the darkness pressing in from all sides. Every shadow, every flicker of light in the distance made my heart race. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I saw the lights of the truck stop ahead. I pulled in and parked, my body shaking with adrenaline and fear. That night, sleep was elusive. Every creak of the truck, every whisper of the wind outside felt like a prelude to the creature's return. I've driven that route many times since, and each time I can't shake the feeling that something is watching me from the shadows. The desert holds many secrets, and some are better left undisturbed. So, if you ever find yourself driving the loneliest road in America late at night, keep your eyes on the road and your wits about you. You never know what might be lurking in the darkness, waiting for its chance to step out of the shadows and into the light of your headlights. In 1969, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin made history by walking on the moon, with Gene Cernan following as the last man to set foot there in 1972. Fast forward to 2024, nearly 55 years later, and the moon landings were mostly just a chapter in our history books. However, a recent encounter would change everything I thought I knew about the moon. It all started about a week ago. I was tinkering with my old ham radio, scanning through various frequencies in search of interesting chatter. Most channels were either static or uninteresting. But then I stumbled upon a faint frequency. It was mostly static, but something about it felt different. As I turned the knob, I heard a sound that sent chills down my spine. A zipper being pulled, cutting through the static. "Hello?" I said, my voice shaking with a mix of curiosity and unease. "Is anyone there?" For a moment, there was nothing but the familiar hiss of static. Then a distinct beep echoed through, one that I recognized from old NASA transmissions. My heart raced. "Am I talking to an astronaut?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Yes," came a croaked reply, strained and weak. "Are you on the International Space Station?" I asked, bewildered. "No," the voice rasped. "They left me here." My mind reeled. "They left you where?" Static swallowed his words briefly, but as I adjusted the antenna, the interference lessened. "Where did they leave you?" I pressed. "Here," he responded, his voice trembling. "On the lunar surface," he whispered, his voice filled with despair. I let out a nervous laugh. "Great joke," I said, trying to convince myself this was some elaborate prank. But then the voice began to sob. "I need you to contact Mission Control," he pleaded. "You're the first person I've talked to in 10 years. My lips felt numb, my throat dry. "How is this possible?" I stammered. "We haven't been to the moon since 1972. "Look, kid," he snapped, irritation lacing his words. "There's a lot you don't know. Just call them." "Give me proof," I demanded, still clinging to disbelief. "I've diverted all power to communications. Flight navigation systems are down, but I can use the MESA camera outside the lander," he explained. "Okay," I replied, my mind spinning. "Send me the pictures." Minutes passed like hours. Then the images started coming through. What I saw made my blood run cold. A spacesuit, battered and torn, with a shattered sun shield. The lunar surface stretched out behind it, desolate and unforgiving. I'll call them," I whispered, my voice trembling with shock. "Please." "No," he cried out suddenly, his voice filled with fear. "Excuse me," I asked, confused by his change in tone. "No, no," he screamed, a sound of pure terror. Then there was a crash, followed by the sound of gurgling. I listened in horror as the helmet's visor cracked and the metal of the suit bent under some immense pressure. His last words were an echoed whisper, a plea lost in the void. And just like that, the frequency fell back to a calm static, as if nothing had ever happened. I sat there, my hands shaking, unable to comprehend the reality of what I had just experienced. Was it a ghost, a forgotten soul, or something far more sinister? The images and sounds from that night have haunted me since, a chilling reminder of the secrets that space might still hold. What really happened up there? And who was left behind, calling out from the shadows of the moon? It was a lazy afternoon, and boredom had settled in like an unwelcome guest. On a whim, I decided to Google my name. My name is quite rare, so I didn't expect to find much. To my surprise, a website popped up with my full name in the domain. Intrigued, I clicked on the link. What I found was a message board, barren and empty, but something about it pulled me in. The profile of the site's owner caught my eye. As I read through the sparse information, a chill ran down my spine. The owner shared my age, my hobbies, and even my interests. It was like looking into a digital mirror. How could this be? I brushed it off as a bizarre coincidence and decided to bookmark the site, intending to check back later. A month passed, and curiosity drew me back to the website. This time, the message board was no longer empty. It contained diary entries, mundane at first, discussions about the weather and work. But as I delved deeper, the entries started to feel eerily familiar. The owner lived in the same city as I did. They mentioned attending the same baseball game I'd gone to last week. I froze when I read about their dog. He had the same name as my childhood pet. This was more than a coincidence. My heart pounded as I scrolled through the entries, each one a reflection of my own life. Then came my birthday. I visited the site again, expecting nothing. Instead, the board was filled with birthday wishes for the owner. Each message seemed to echo the well wishes I'd received earlier that day. Confused, I decided to post a message of my own, wishing the owner a happy birthday and marveling at our similarities. But as I tried to type, I realized there was no input box, no way to leave a comment. The entire board was static, pre-written. It was a facade, an elaborate ruse crafted by someone I couldn't begin to understand. Anxiety twisted in my gut. Who was behind this? And why were they mimicking my life? Determined to uncover the truth, I found the contact email listed on the site. With shaky hands, I typed out a message explaining our shared name and asking about the uncanny parallels in our lives. I hit send and waited, my mind racing with possibilities. The next morning, I checked the site, but it was gone. The domain no longer existed. Panic set in. What had I stumbled upon? Then, an email notification flashed across my screen. It was a reply. Found you. The word sent a jolt of terror through me. Who had found me, and for what purpose? I felt exposed, as if unseen eyes were watching me, tracking my every move. I scanned the room, half expecting someone to be lurking in the shadows. My days turned into a blur of fear and paranoia. I changed my passwords, updated my security settings, and watched my back everywhere I went. But the sense of dread lingered, a constant companion whispering of unseen threats. Every noise in the night became a potential intruder. Every stranger, a possible stalker. I delved into researching the site, trying to trace its origins. But every lead was a dead end, every attempt to unmask the owner, futile. I was left with only questions and a gnawing fear that my life was no longer my own. Months passed, and I tried to move on, to bury the experience deep in my memory. But the fear never truly left. It lurked in the corners of my mind, a shadow that followed me wherever I went. I started noticing subtle changes in my life. Things moved from their usual spots, odd items appearing in my home. It felt like a game of cat and mouse, with me as the unwitting prey. I told my friends and family, but their reassurances fell flat. They couldn't understand the depth of my fear, the sense of violation that comes from knowing someone out there has been watching you, learning your every habit, mimicking your life. To this day, I don't know who created that website or why. The experience has left me with a lingering sense of vulnerability, fear that my privacy could be invaded so easily. I've become hyper-vigilant, wary of every click, every digital footprint. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Be careful what you search for. You might find more than you bargained for. And in the vast expanse of the internet, some things are better left undiscovered. So the next time you feel the urge to Google yourself, remember my story. Ask yourself if you're prepared for what you might find. December 22nd, 2023, 11:22 p.m. For the past week, my nights have been haunted by dreams of Mia Walter, a girl who vanished from my high school years ago. I'm 24 now, living across the country from my hometown, and until recently, high school was a distant memory. But these dreams are dragging the past into my present, forcing me to remember things I'd rather forget. Mia was a junior when she disappeared, and I was a senior. We weren't close, but I knew of her. She was quiet, kept to herself, and hung around a small group of friends. Her family was well off, and her brother Mike had a reputation for causing trouble. Rumors swirled that he'd been sent to a mental institution because his violent behavior had become too much for their parents to handle. After Mike was sent away, Mia didn't come to school for 2 weeks. When she returned, the sight of her shocked me. She was a shadow of her former self, her body covered in bruises, her eyes sunken and void of their usual light. She never lifted her gaze to meet mine. That same day, the police arrived and took Mia out of class. The school had reported her absences, but seeing her in that state prompted a deeper investigation. That was the last time anyone at school saw her. A week later, she was reported missing, and despite the search efforts, she was never found. I've tried to bury these memories, to escape the guilt that nags at me, reminding me of what I could have done, but didn't. Now I can't escape them. Every time I close my eyes, Mia is there, reaching out to me through my dreams. December 23rd, 2023, 9:34 a.m. Last night's dream was different. It was darker, twisted, like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I found myself in a room that seemed familiar yet strange, filled with expensive furniture and an air of dread. Then I saw Mike, Mia's brother, in a fit of rage, screaming and throwing things. Mia was there too, trying to calm him down. Suddenly, Mike grabbed Mia by the neck and hurled her into a glass coffee table. She lay there, her body writhing in pain. Their mother walked in, surveyed the scene without emotion, and led Mike away, leaving Mia alone and hurt. Was this a memory or just a dream? Was this the reason Mike was sent away? I'm drowning in questions with no answers in sight. December 23rd, 2023, 5:46 p.m. I've spent the day digging into the Walter family's history. They're more influential than I realized. Mia's father is a corporate lawyer with a strong presence in politics. I found traces of Mia in the form of academic achievements and family event photos, but nothing about Mike. It's as if he was erased from the public eye. Then I stumbled upon a post on Mia's mother's Facebook from 8 years ago, explaining Mike's departure from school. It was a sanitized version of events, claiming he went to a psychiatric hospital in Pennsylvania. In desperation, I called the hospital, but they had no record of Mike ever being a patient. The family's story doesn't add up. December 24th, 2023, 4:56 a.m. The dreams are intensifying, becoming more vivid. Last night, I saw Mia stumbling through a dark forest. I followed her, my body moving without my control. She reached a clearing that overlooked a lake, a place I knew well. Mike was there, desperate and scared. He talked about running away, afraid of what their parents had planned for him. Mia begged to go with him, but he refused, fearing for her safety. They agreed to meet weekly at that spot. Mike didn't go to a psychiatric hospital. He ran away, and his parents covered it up. I'm reliving these moments through Mia's eyes, and I'm terrified of what's coming next. December 25th, 2023, 1:07 p.m. I can't shake the horror of last night's dream. I was back at the cliff, and Mia was there, scared and alone. Mike emerged from the shadows, accusing her of betraying him. She had told their parents where he was hiding, and they'd called the police. Mike was furious, too blinded by rage to see Mia's fear. He attacked her, leaving her broken and bleeding. Suddenly, I was in my high school hallway, everyone staring at me. In the bathroom mirror, I saw Mia's bruised face staring back. I was reliving the day she came back to school and the day she disappeared. I was pulled into an interrogation room at the police station. They asked about Mike and the bruises. I wanted to tell them everything, but Mia wouldn't let me speak. I was back in the dark high school, a light coming from a classroom where Mike waited, with a gun in his hand. He blamed me for everything and said he couldn't hurt me anymore. He pulled the trigger, and my vision went black. I watched as Mike buried Mia's body beneath the bleachers. I woke up, nauseated and terrified. Was it real? Should I call the police? December 28th, 2023, 7:46 p.m. I called the police anonymously, unsure if I could handle the truth. Today, I saw it on the news. They found Mia's body under the bleachers. Relief and sorrow washed over me. I don't know why this happened, but I'm glad Mia's story can finally be told. I'm so sorry, Mia. As a film professor at an art college in Maryland, I've seen my share of student films. Some bad, some good, and some downright weird. During the 2020 lockdown, my film course moved online. The students filmed around their homes and uploaded their projects. Most showcased their surroundings, like gaming setups or pet antics. But one student's submission stood out, David's. His work started out strange and grew into something that left me shaken to my core. For the first assignment, I asked students to film a setting. David set up his camera in his backyard and captured a dead oak tree. It seemed harmless, if a little odd. I figured he was an artsy type, drawn to the eerie look of the old tree. But as the assignments continued, David's work became more disturbing. The next project focused on continuity editing. While others filmed themselves cooking or doing daily tasks, David submitted a video of himself tying a noose and hanging a mannequin from the oak tree. The imagery was unsettling, but I had to maintain my composure. In film, horror is a common theme. I didn't want to discourage his creativity. David's third video was in black and white, showing a man in a medieval jester costume dancing around the tree. His face was hidden behind a smiling mask, and the whole scene exuded an unsettling vibe. It was eerie, not the fun horror I was used to seeing. I began to worry about David's state of mind. After class, David messaged me, asking if I was tired of seeing the same tree. I told him to continue with what inspired him, feeling it was the right encouragement at the time. Soon, other professors mentioned that David's projects in their classes also featured the dead oak tree. In photography, he merged images of a car crash with the tree. In digital illustration, he drew the tree with people hanging from its branches. Meanwhile, a student named James, an aspiring YouTuber, asked if he could submit a Let's Play video for an assignment. Normally, I'd say no, but given the circumstances, I allowed it with the condition of heavy narration. James invited me to watch him play PUBG on Twitch, and to my surprise, David was in his gaming squad. I asked James how he knew David, and he revealed they were neighbors. James then shared a disturbing story from their middle school days. A man claiming to be a former resident of David's house had visited, reminiscing about a treehouse his father had almost finished building before a fatal fall. The man, unable to enter the house, was allowed by David to see the oak tree. Later that day, he was found hanging from the tree. The following semester, David wasn't in my class, but a cinematography professor called me about his latest video. The assignment was to light up a night scene. David's video was a handheld shot of him circling the oak tree with a flashlight, capturing its ominous presence. She reprimanded him for the unprofessional quality, and he abruptly logged off. She regretted her harsh words. Students noticed David's fixation on the tree and shared their concerns with me. David eventually dropped out of all classes. His absence was palpable. A few nights later, I was watching James' live stream on Twitch when David burst into James' room, covered in blood and glass shards. James screamed and fell out of his chair, quickly regained his composure, asking David what had happened. David looked into the camera, addressing me directly. He told me to check the video he had just submitted. My heart pounded as I received a notification of a new video in our department's file storage, uploaded by David. I opened it to find footage of David setting up a camera in the back seat of his car. He sat in the driver's seat, looked into the camera, and without turning around, stepped on the gas. The car accelerated towards the oak tree, and the video cut to black on impact. I immediately called the police. The video was chilling, a testament to a mind unraveling. David's obsession with the dead oak tree had consumed him. The police found him unconscious but alive, the car wrapped around the tree. To this day, I can't shake the image of David's last video. It serves as a haunting reminder of how the mind can twist reality, turning a simple object into a symbol of despair and destruction.